Welcome back to the Wasteland. Today we're going to be ranking all of the armors in Fallout 3 to see how good they are. So for this I've got my tier list here, and we've got all of our armors with a few exceptions here, because there was actually a lot of cut armors in Fallout 3, interestingly enough. For the stats of the base vault jumpsuit, this one always has one armor on it, which is not good. It does only weigh one weight though, so that's nice. You can carry around a lot of these if you would like, and these always give you +2 melee weapons and +2 speech. These ones are just not really that great to be carrying around. The +2 speech is going to be the big selling point of this, and honestly you should probably treat this more as clothing, but since it came with all the other vault stuff, I will be rating it with armor. So the standard vault suit is going to go into the D tier. Just not really the best. Up next we have the armored version of the vault suit, which this one is quite a bit better. You can get this one right at the very start of the game if you just go to Megaton and you talk to Moira, and the armored vault suit is quite a bit better. This is actually a really good early game armor, because the armored vault suit has 12 defense, weighs 15, so it's not super heavy, it's got okay defense there, and it gives you +5 energy weapons and +5 small guns. The health is the same, and you can fix this up with jumpsuits, which is awesome because you're probably going to be carrying around a lot of them at the start. This one is actually really good for the beginning of the game. It does tend to fall off later once you start getting access to other armors and you can fix those ones up. So for the early game, I'm going to say it's a B tier armor. It's pretty decent. Later on though, it's probably going to drop down to a C tier armor where it's just kind of okay. Then we got a bit of an unusual armor here. This is Dad's Wasteland outfit. And this one you can get in the regular game. You can even get it on console. But the way you have to do it is at the project, when the project actually explodes, then you can go into third person, spin your camera around and actually reach into there and collect his stuff as well as Colonel Autumn's gear too. Again, this is more clothing than armor, and it's actually really bad clothing because this one has 2 defense and it weighs 20 weight. So it weighs as much as regular armor does, like combat armor, but it doesn't protect you at all. It also gives you +5 lockpicking and +5 repair. This one you're probably just going to take just to have it, just as a collectible. It is a really cool item to include in the game, but it's just not a really good one. +5 lockpicking and +5 repair is really nice, but I don't think it's worth carrying around something that weighs 20. So I'm going to put this one into D tier as well. Then we have the modified utility jumpsuit. This one you actually get as a quest reward once you go back to Vault 101. And this one for stats has 1 defense, weighs 2, and this one gives you +1 luck, +10 radiation resistance, and +5 repair. This one's actually pretty good, and if you want to consider this more as clothing, it's a really good one to be carrying around. 2 extra weight is not that much. 5 more repair is fantastic. Radiation resist is kind of whatever, but +1 more luck, there's not a whole lot of things that give you more luck, so this is actually pretty nice. As armor itself, it's not really the greatest, but I guess I'd put this one a tier higher into C tier because it does have some uses. Then we've got the Tunnel Snake outfit. This is a jumpsuit with a leather jacket over the top of it. This one does have different stats. This one has 4 armor on it and weighs 2. Still not the best, and this one gives you +5 melee weapons. +5 melee weapons is kind of nice. It's okay for the start if you want to go with a melee build, but I would still rather go with the armored suit. I think that one's much better, so I'm going to put this one high up into D tier. It is a bit better. Then we have the Vault 77 jumpsuit. This one is a little bit different. You have to get this one at Paradise Falls, and it kind of comes with a unique tape that you can listen to, where this belonged to somebody that the slavers are pretty afraid of. They don't really say who this is or who this outfit actually belonged to. So this one has the same stats as regular jumpsuit, 1 armor, 1 weight, but for stats this one actually gives you +5 unarmed and +5 melee. That is quite a bit better, and if you want to rush to Paradise Falls to pick this up, it's not a bad option. I still wouldn't say that it's worth getting over the armored vault suit though, and I'd probably also put it into D tier unless you just really like the extra weight. I'm going to put it at the very top of D tier though, because I think it is decent. Then we have the Vault utility suit. This one weighs 1 weight, has 1 armor, and gives you +5 lockpicking, +5 repair. This is the same as your dad's outfit, but it actually has reasonable weight. So this one's going to go also up into C tier. It's pretty good. Then we have the Vault Lab uniform. This one has 2 armor on it, which is decent, weighs 1, and gives you +5 science. This one's another one that I'm going to put into C tier. It's not as good as the utility jumpsuit, but having just more science to like hack into computers is pretty good. Pretty much all of these are just for utility, really. The only one worth taking is the armored jumpsuit for actual like defense. But having these on your character can be actually pretty nice, just so that you can get into certain areas where you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Let's move on to the combat armor now, and combat armor is pretty good. You can find this scattered all over the Wasteland, and combat armor comes actually in quite a variety of flavors. So first up, we just have standard combat armor. This doesn't have any effect on it, but this one does give you 32 armor, which is pretty good, and it weighs 25. So it is kind of heavy, but combat armor by itself is usually a pretty solid option for the mid game, especially if you're not rushing certain DLCs where you can get some really overpowered stuff. So regular combat armor, I'd probably put up into B tier. It's pretty good once you can get a set of it, and so long as you can keep it fixed, it will protect you pretty well. I'd probably put it above the armor jumpsuit, although the jumpsuit is probably better for the early game just because it's easier to fix than if you got combat armor early on. Next up is Lagbolt's combat armor. This one you get in the Broken Steel DLC. This one protects for 38, weighs 30, so it is heavier, but it protects for more. This one also gives you plus 10 action points and plus 10 big guns. Plus 10 action points is really good because VATS in Fallout 3 is insanely strong, so if you want to be getting this, it's going to be a pretty decent set of armor. It's just usually I don't go out of my way to really get this. I'm going to put this one also high up into B tier. It's probably on the very high end of B tier, bordering A tier. Next we have the Ranger's Battle Armor, and the Ranger's Battle Armor is really good. This one has the highest amount of defense out of any of the combat armors. This one gives you 39 defense, which is very high. That's pretty comparable to like power armor. Weighs 27, so it's not super heavy. This one also has bonuses of 5 more action points, plus 1 luck, and plus 10 small guns. In order to get this, you will either have to get it off of one of the Riley's Rangers that dies, or you will have to complete the quest and then ask for the armor. And this one is probably the best combat armor out of all of these combat armors. So I'm going to put this one up into S tier. I think it's actually one of the best armors that you can get. Certain other armors that we'll be talking about in the future still blow this one out of the water, but this one is still very, very good overall. And looking at these, I'm actually going to move Lagbolts up to A tier compared to the other armors that we got. It's actually pretty solid too. Next up, we have the Rivet City Security Armor. This one is basically just weaker combat armor. It's kind of nice that you can fix up combat armor with this though. So this one protects for 24, it weighs 20, and it gives you plus 5 small guns. This one also has very low item HP. This one, if you want to rush to Rivet City and collect these, they're actually pretty good armors. But I don't think I can put them any higher than B tier, because even regular combat armor kinda is just better than these. And then we've got Talon Company armor. Talon Company combat armor you can get from killing the Talon Company if they come for you when you have good karma. This is pretty nice because you can fix up regular combat armor with it. This is very similar to the Rivet Security Armor, where this one has 28 defense, 25 weight, and it has better item HP, but it's just going to be better if you just cannibalize it into regular combat armor, so also B tier. And then we've got the 10 penny security armor. This is actually the exact same as the Rivet City combat armor. It's just tan in color rather than black in color, so it's also going to go up into B tier. Then we've got the Winterized combat armor, where this one still has 32 armor and still weighs 25. However, this one has basically infinite item HP, so it really never breaks, which automatically makes it quite a bit better than regular combat armor. This one is probably going to go to the high end of A tier. It's not the best thing that you can get out of Operation Anchorage because there is some other armors that are better than this. But if you really like the look of this one, or you really like the combat armor in general, this one is still very strong. It's still going to protect you perfectly fine against almost everything in the Wasteland, and it's going to be a pretty solid option. And then we have the Winterized Medic armor. This one you actually don't get from Anchorage. This one you get from the mothership. And this is from, well, the soldiers that are kind of living on borrowed time, so you can take their armor off of them after this. This one has the same stats as the previous armor, so 32 defense, 25 weight, but this one gives you plus 10 medicine. Plus 10 medicine is pretty good, makes so your healing is better. It's not a massive upgrade over the combat armor, but I'm probably still going to put it on the low end of A tier. Now we're going to move on to the power armor, which is some of the strongest armor. Now all the power armors you do need to have power armor training in order to actually use, which you can obtain one of two ways. Either you can complete Operation Anchorage and you'll get the power armor training just from that, or you can go through about 2/3 the main story and you can get it from the Brotherhood. Either way, once you have that, then you can start wearing the power armor. And our very first power armor, at least in alphabetical order, is going to be Asher's power armor. This is Asher's power armor from when he was in the Brotherhood, before he got left in the pit, and he's kind of modified it. You can see that by the Brahmin skull that he's mounted to his shoulder there, using it as like a pauldron. So his armor has been modified a decent amount, and there's actually two armors that look the same, but we're going to be talking about Asher's first. This one gives you 40 defense, weighs 45, so it is very heavy as you would kind of expect. Has a lot of item health though. All the power armors have a ton of item HP. And this one gives you plus 1 strength, plus 1 charisma, plus 1 luck, minus 1 agility, and plus 10 radiation resist. This is pretty solid armor all the way around. It's good for defense, it is a bit heavy, but the bonuses are very nice. -1 agility does kind of suck, it's not the best skill to be losing out on, and the radiation resistance is kind of cool, but not really the biggest thing. I'm going to put Asher's armor into A tier. I think it's a pretty solid armor. Then we move on to the Brotherhood Power Armor, which this one also protects 40, weighs 45, still has the same amount of item health. This one gives you +2 strength, -2 agility, and +10 radiation resist. This one is also good, but I don't think it's as good as Asher's. It's kind of like the standard power armor, but you can do better than that throughout the game. So regular power armor here, I'm just going to put it into B tier. By the time you can actually get power armor, regardless of how you're actually going about it, you do have better options than the standard power armors. So they're still better than most of these armors, at least in terms of defense, but you're probably not going to go for it unless you just really like the look of it. Then we've got Enclave Hellfire Armor, and this one is pretty cool. This one comes from the Broken Steel DLC. You do have to take this off of the Hellfire Soldiers, and they are generally the strongest that the Enclave has, and this armor kind of reflects that. This one has 50 defense, which is actually the maximum amount of defense you can get in this game, or at least the max you can have on armor. This one weighs 40, so it's actually slightly lighter than the other armors we talked about. Has double the amount of item HP, so it takes longer to break. This one gives you +1 strength, +30 fire resist, and +15 radiation resist. This has no downsides to it, and it's just one of the strongest armors in the game. This one is also going to go very high up into S tier. It's probably going to be our highest one into S tier, at least as of right now. Next up, we have the Enclave Power Armor. This one is very similar to Brotherhood Power Armor. So this one is also 40 armor, 45 weight, has slightly more item HP, but not by that much. Has +1 strength, -1 agility, +15 radiation resist. So the plus strength is not as high, the minus agility is not as high, and you get slightly more radiation resist. Again, it's very similar to the regular power armor, where it's going to go into B tier. It's still very strong, and it's still a really good set of armor to get. It's just that it's not substantially better than some of the other power armors that you could go out of your way to get. Next up, we have Lindell's Outcast Power Armor. This is name specific, so you do have to take this off of him if you want it. And this one is pretty much the same as the other power armor. So it protects for 40, weighs 45, has the same item HP as regular power armor, has +1 strength, -1 agility, +10 radiation resistance, and +5 big guns. This one's a little bit better than regular power armor, but not by a significant amount. It's still not as good as like Asher's power armor. That one just gives you better stats. +5 big guns is kind of cool, but it's going to be like another high B tier, probably the top of B tier. Our next three armors are all going to be basically the same armor. This is basic power armor, the Lion's Pride armor, and the Outcast power armor. And they all function the same way as the Brotherhood Power Armor, where they have 40 defense, they weigh 45 weight, they have +2 strength, -2 agility, and then the radiation resist on top of them. These are all fine armors, and they're all going to go into B tier. They're all decent, none of them are crazy. You probably want to go out of your way for some of the more crazy power armors that you can get. And kind of speaking of that, we have one of them up next, which is the Prototype Medic Power Armor. So this one you have to get at Old Oldney, which is a very scary place because there's a lot of death claws sitting around it, and you have to go through that and get to the underground to actually get it. This one protects for 40, weighs 45 like regular power armor, has the same item HP. This one gives you -1 agility, +25 radiation resistance, and it makes it so it can automatically use medics on you. That's pretty good because medics makes so you take reduced damage. And this is very similar to what we got in Fallout New Vegas, where we got the stealth suit that could administer chems as well, and administer healing in that one. And this one, you don't get healed, but you do take reduced damage. This will run through your drugs, though, and if you don't have, like, chem resist, you can become addicted to medics faster. So that is a little bit awkward, and I don't really like using this one that much, but it is more interesting than the other power armors that we've talked about. So I'm going to put this one up into A tier. I think it's a bit better. Next up is the T-51b Power Armor. This one is the strongest power armor in the game, tied with the Hellfire Armor, although this one is just in the base game. There is only one suit of this. You can't repair it with anything, which really does kind of suck, but assuming that you can get somebody else to fix it up, it's not such a big deal. And you do have to go through one of the longest quests in the game for this, where you have to get everybody's key in order to actually get through the bunker and get this armor. This one does protect for 50. It only weighs 40, same as the Hellfire Armor, so it's really good for that. It's got just as much item HP as Hellfire Armor, and it comes fully repaired, which is nice. And this one just gives you +25 maximum radiation resist. This one is quite solid, but I don't find it as useful as like Hellfire Armor. I'm still going to put it up into S tier because it is the strongest power armor. It still has the most defense, so if you want to be using it, go for it. It's just not being able to fix it does bother me. Then we have Tesla armor. Tesla armor is another armor that the Enclave can have. This is usually on higher leveled soldiers, and this one is just stronger. This one has 43 armor on it, which is pretty good. Weighs 45, so it is still very heavy. Has better than average item HP. That's nice, as well as it gives you plus 20 radiation resist and plus 10 energy weapons. This one's going to go up into A tier. It's one of the better power armors in the game. I don't know if it's necessarily better than these other ones. I still feel like I would rather have Asher's over it, but it does look pretty cool. I like the electricity on it too. Then we have the Tribal Power Armor. The Tribal Power Armor looks just like Asher's Power Armor, and it is the ultimate reward from the pit. You do have to collect all 100 steel ingots inside of the steel yard to actually get this, and for this you actually get a pretty good suit of armor. So this one has 35 defense on it, actually less than any of the other power armors, weirdly enough. Weighs 40, still has okay item HP. This one gives you plus 1 strength, plus 1 luck, minus 1 agility, plus 15 total action points, and plus 5 melee weapons. This one really embraces the pit, and it is still strong. I don't know if it's necessarily better than Asher's armor though. It feels like it shouldn't really have those minuses, like the minus agility. I feel like it should be like plus agility since this one is so difficult to get. Yeah, I'm gonna put this one up into A tier. It's a really cool reward that you get at the very end of the pit. And then our very last suit of power armor is the Winterized T-51b Power Armor. This is the one that you get from Anchorage. This one has 45 defense, weighs 40, so not quite as high as some of these other options, but this one is unbreakable, or functionally unbreakable. It has a ton of item HP. It has like over 9 million item HP, so it takes forever for this thing to break. There is only one of it, and you will need somebody else to fix it up, potentially, but you're never going to get hurt enough throughout an entire playthrough that you would ever need to fix this up. It also gives you plus 25 radiation resist. This one is going to go to the very top of our S tier because this one is pretty busted, especially with how quickly and easily it is to rush to Operation Anchorage right at the very start of the game. Get your power armor training, get up to level, like 8 or 9 by the time you finished it, and get this to where you're just have the strongest armor right away. Armor that is unbreakable, has really high defense, has a good bonus on it. It also looks really cool too. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to complain about there. It is really, really strong. First up with our Raider armors, we have pretty much all of the standard Raider armors. So this is the Badlands armor, the Blastmaster armor, the Sadist armor, and the Pain Spike armor. These all do the same thing. They all have the same amount of item HP, the same amount of defense, and the same amount of weight, where they all protect for 16 and they have 15 weight. They also have very low item HP. And these ones are okay to be taking because this is actually more defense than something like the Armored Vault Suit, and farming Raiders early on is really, really easy, but having no bonuses on this and it breaking super quick is just very awkward. So Raider armor is going to go up high into C tier. It's okay armor for the very beginning, but you're going to phase it out of your build pretty fast unless you're just going with a Raider only build or something like that. Then we have the Pitts Raider armor. First up, we have the Commando Raider armor. This one's 18 defense, 15 weight, slightly more item HP, and this one gives you plus 3 guns, plus 3 unarmed. This one is decent, but it's still not that great. The extra defense is good, and small guns and unarmed is also good, but it's a bit better than regular armor, probably not as good as any of these armors up here. Then we have the Iconolist armor. I hope I'm saying that one right. I actually don't know. This one I like the look of a whole lot more, but it actually is probably worse than the previous armor we just talked about. Still 18 defense, 15 weight. This one gives you 5 radiation resistance. Yeah, it's better than regular Raider armor, but not by that much. Ordnance armor is better because this one is 18 defense, 10 weight, and plus 4 small guns, although it has worse item HP. So this one is probably going to go to the top of our C tier. I think it is the best of these armors, besides maybe our next one, which I think is a little bit better, which is the Pain Giver armor. This one has 18 defense and only weighs 5 weight, and it gives you plus 4 unarmed. Unarmed is really strong in the pit if you want to rush this, and 5 weight to 18 defense is actually really good. So I'm going to put it up into B tier. I think this one's actually a whole lot better than the other armors that we've talked about. It's still not amazing. I would still rather have probably all these combat armors and the power armors over it. Then our last one is the Throwdown armor. Throwdown armor is also 18 defense, 15 weight, slightly better item HP, plus 3 melee, plus 3 unarmed. This one's going to go into C tier as well. It's okay. It's not bad. Then we move on to the other armors. So these are armors that just don't really fit into any other category, although some of these definitely look the same as other armors that we've just seen. So first up, we actually have one of the pit armors. This is called the Bombshell Armor, and this one you get as a reward from the pit as well for collecting so many ingots. This one gives you 24 defense, 15 weight, and it also gives you plus 10 big guns, plus 10 explosives. And plus 10 explosives is really nice, so I'm going to put this one pretty high up into B tier. I guess I'll keep it with these other ones so that there's some separation, but I think it is better than these armors right here. Then we've got probably one of our strongest of the other armors. This is the Chinese stealth suit that you get from Operation Anchorage. This one protects for 28, weighs 20, which is still pretty good for the weight to armor ratio. This one also has decent item HP. This one gives you plus 15 sneak, which is a ton of sneak, and it also gives you a stealth field. So it's basically a stealth boy whenever you're crouching. This is really strong. This is also going to go high up into S tier. It is incredibly powerful in Fallout 3, where sneak is just kind of overpowered because you can be sitting still, have enemies bump into you, and they still can't find you, assuming that you have high enough sneak. This makes it even easier because of the stealth build, and it's really strong on like a sniper build if you want to take that, or a shotgun build. Shotguns are insanely overpowered with any sort of crits. And then we've got Gamma Shield Armor. This is 36 armor, but 45 weight, so power armor-ish stats. A lot of item HP, minus 1 agility, plus 15 radiation resistance. This one's good just for the defense alone, and there's not a whole lot of different armors in the pit, so if you get this one, I'm going to put it up into B tier. I think it's one of the stronger ones. Maybe not the best weight to armor ratio, but still really good if you just want something to tank through some more damage. Then we've got Leather Armor. Leather Armor is a pretty common armor that you can find throughout the Wasteland. A lot of people carry it around. This has 24 defense on it, 15 weight. This is basically just better of these lower leveled combat armors, where it just has a better weight to armor ratio. Still has kind of low item HP, but you can fix this up pretty easily, so it's also going to go into B tier. It's pretty decent. Then we have Leather Rebel. This is another one that you get as a reward from the pit, and this one is really good. This one protects for 30 armor, which is a lot, weighs 15, so same as regular leather armor. It can be fixed up with regular leather armor, and it gives you plus 1 charisma on top of that. This is just really good statted, and if you want to rush the pit early, this is probably one of the best armors that you can actually get from there. So I'm going to actually put this one up into A tier. I think it's actually better than most of the other armors you can get in that DLC, with the exception of maybe the power armors. Then we have Metal Armor. Metal Armor is 36 armor, 30 weight, so this is the same as like the Gamma Shield Armor, minus 1 agility. This also has good item HP. Metal Armor is actually pretty decent in Fallout 3, especially if you get it early on. It's not really the best at anything, because as soon as you get Power Armor access, you're going to switch over to that because it's just stronger than this and comes with more upsides, where this one just has a downside. It's not bad if you find Metal Armor early on, though. I'm going to put it into B tier. It's still pretty decent, probably actually above some of these other armors, maybe not above the Blast Master Armor. Then we have the Metal Master Armor, which I think I actually got these backwards, so let me put that one up there. This is Metal Master Armor, and this one is also related to the pit. This one is a lot better metal armor. This one is 36 defense, 15 weight though, so it's a lot more manageable. It does have low item HP though, compared to the other metal armors, and it gives you plus 10 energy weapons, plus 10 unarmed, and minus 1 agility. This is another one that really stands out, especially if you're going with like a melee tank build, and you want to be rushing unarmed, which is probably the strongest thing to actually run through the pit with. So this one I'm also going to put up in A tier, because this is better than regular metal armor, even though it breaks quite a bit faster. If you can keep it fixed up, it's really good for those type of builds. Same thing kind of goes with the Leather Rebel. I think that these give you the most amount of value in that DLC. Then we got Recon Armor. Recon Armor is generally worn by the Brotherhood, and you can wear it without needing power armor training, which is awesome. This one is the same stats as the Chinese stealth suit, actually. So this one's 28 defense, 20 weight, gives you plus 5 sneak. It doesn't have the stealth build, which does let it down quite a bit. This is still decent armor if you want to take it early on, because this is still better than like any of these combat armors, so it's still going to go fairly high into B tier, but it's not as good as like the power armors if you get access to them, and it's nowhere near as good as the Chinese jumpsuit if you want something for sneaking around. That one is just leagues better than this. Then we got the Samurai Armor. You get this on Mothership Zeta if the Samurai dies and you loot his body. Otherwise, he's the only one that has this. So the Samurai Armor gives you 30 defense for 20 weight, which is pretty good for the weight to armor ratio. And this gives you plus 10 melee damage and plus 10 melee weapons. So you actually get more base damage with it, which is really interesting, because this is about the only armor that actually does that. And having plus 10 more base damage on melee weapons is fantastic. Like, this one is really good for a melee build. So I'm going to put this one up into S tier too. It's just if you're not running a melee build, then obviously this one is not really going to be a priority for you. It's kind of like having 2 stacks of Iron Fist, but if it went for melee weapons. And if you want to rush Mothership Zeta, you can actually get this and the Katana, and you're pretty much set for a melee build, unless you want to swap that out for like the Shish Kebab later. And then our very last armor that we're going to be taking a look at today is the Wanderer's Leather Armor. This one is kind of unique because you gotta kill the guy who has this, and he is just a random event. This is definitely a Mad Max reference. I mean, the leather armor and the sawed-off shotgun being in the game are definitely Mad Max references, but this one even more so. So this one actually has the same stats as leather armor, just with a slight bonus. So this is 24 defense, 15 weight, but plus 10 small guns. Plus 10 small guns is awesome. I'm not going to put this any higher than B tier, though. I still think something like Leather Rebel is probably better than this, since it just gives you more defense. And if you're going for a small gun build, you're probably going to max that out pretty quickly. This is where I'd put all the armors in Fallout 3. We will be taking a look at the clothing next time, and then we'll be taking a look at all the helmets and eyewear and stuff after that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Tell me your thoughts on these armors as well. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.